Welcome to It's an EDRN. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Johari Window. If you're like me, you probably haven't thought about this since nursing school, but it's one of those concepts that can be really helpful to understand ourselves and sometimes others. So let's get into it. I'm your host in EDRN, and I hope you'll stick around to listen.
It's an E, it's a D, it's an EDRN. It's an E, stands for emergency. It's a D, stands for department. It's an ED, non-erectile dysfunction. RN, that's a nurse.
Episode 48, an EDRN is a window. Welcome to my podcast, It's an EDRN. I am your host in EDRN, and today we're going to talk about the Johari Window. This is not something I think about a lot, but every time I do think about it, I think, why don't I think about this more? Does that make sense? Does any of that make any sense? Yeah, it's a really interesting construct. You've probably heard about it, but if not, we're going to learn all about it and how can you use this to kind of understand sometimes who you are, why you are, what you do, and why other people do what they do as well, which can be really helpful. If you are new to this show, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm your host. I'm an EDRN. I've been an RN for 12 years now. I started out in med-surg. I did ICU. I was a house supervisor for a hot minute, and then I became a nurse manager. Yeah, let's not get into that. But for the last almost 2.5 years now, I've been working bedside in a level 1 trauma center, really, really enjoying it, very stressful, and sometimes just working in a high-stress environment brings things out of you that you didn't realize were in there. And it can do the same to others. And so sometimes it just takes a lot for all of us to kind of understand where each other's coming from. And that is where the Johari Window can help. So, what is it? The Johari Window, just taking a historical look back, like so many other constructs in our history, was invented by two psychologists, men, of course, Joseph and Harry, whose celebrity couple name is Johari. So that's why they named it the Johari Window. No joke. I kind of love that about them, actually. Maybe they were kind of cool dudes and not so bad. Anyway, this model uses a simple 4-quadrant grid to represent different aspects of our personalities and kind of knowledge of ourselves. There are 4 quadrants, and in the original model, each quadrant was the same size, but in more developed models, these quadrants are different sizes. So the first quadrant, which is the open area, this is usually for most people the largest quadrant. And this quadrant contains things about yourself that you know and that others know because you are willing to share them with others. So these can be things, and again, this has all to do with your personality, like who you are, not just like things you do or facts about yourself. So the open area, this first largest quadrant, includes your skills, your interests, your opinions, and it can also just be basic biographical information as well. The second area is the blind area, and the blind area includes things about yourself that others know, but you are unaware of. So this could be things like certain mannerisms you have, certain biases you hold, or habits that you have that others have kind of picked up on by observing you, but you haven't picked up on them at all. The third quadrant is the hidden area. And this quadrant contains things about yourself that you know about yourself, but you choose not to share them with others. So this could include things like personal anxieties, certain vulnerabilities, secrets that you keep. And then the fourth area, and undoubtedly the scariest area. And hopefully the smallest area is the unknown area. And this quadrant represents things about yourself that are not only unknown to you, but they're also unknown to others. So like this is a part of you, but nobody knows that, including yourself. It could be things like hidden talents, untapped potential, and then aspects of your subconscious mind. So, interesting, right? It gets more interesting when we start to sit down with this construct and kind of flesh out the things that belong in each area. So, since this is my show and I'm kind of just talking to myself here, let's do me. So, the first area, the largest area of the Johari window, the open area. Things I know about myself and other people also can see or that I have shared with them. For me, things I've been able to identify are I'm good under pressure. I enjoy pressure, actually. I work in an emergency department. Clearly, I like to be under pressure. I'm loud. I try to kind of develop for this podcast a very, soothing kind of intro voice. And then that gets dropped after I read the intro, which I like write out in full. And the rest of the show is just bullet points. And that's where I can kind of relax a little bit. And the more I relax, the louder I get. And that's just me. I speak my mind. Everyone knows this about me. And sometimes this really works in my favor. And sometimes it really, really doesn't. Yeah, that might be a different episode we can get into later. I love reading fantasy fiction books. I love Star Trek. And I will cut a bitch if that bitch is a doctor that disrespects me or members of my team. So, yeah, those are things that I know about myself. Other people know about me. It's pretty out in the open. The blind area. Now, this is a bit different. And this is a bit more difficult because I have to infer this area from feedback I've gotten from others because by definition, this is something I don't know about myself, but other people can see clearly. So based on feedback I've gotten from others over the years and solicited and unsolicited, might I add, I can be intimidating. That is some people's perception of me. This may be because of my loudness. This may be because I'm opinionated. This may also be just depending on that other person and where they're coming from. Yeah, but I've gotten that in the past that I can be intimidating for people, especially people who are new. Confrontational. I have been called confrontational in the past. I prefer direct. I think I'm a direct person. I think you don't have to guess what I'm thinking or what I think about you or what you're doing or what you're saying. And this goes along, I think, with being quote unquote opinionated. But I also think that this has a lot to do with me being a woman, to be fair. In a man, traditionally, this may be seen as leadership potential. And in a woman, it's seen as confrontational. Bossy, I can be bossy. People have felt bossed around by me a lot. They're not always negative. I am often told by people that I care a lot, that I'm a good person, that I'm kind. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think I'm unkind, and I don't think that I don't care. I actually do. I do care a lot. I have a lot of feelings and emotions. I'm a Cancer, okay? That just comes along with it. It's not my fault. It just is how I was born. So, and I try to develop that, and I try to understand other people, and I try to understand where they're coming from and their needs. I do care a lot, but the thing is that caring can be a double-edged sword because then it can turn into feelings, and feelings kind of make me very verbal and direct, and hence the intimidating, confrontational, bossy part of that. All of those go together. You can't separate those out. And we'll get more into that in a minute. Let's continue with my little window exploration here. The hidden area, this is the area that I know about myself, but I don't want other people to know. And these are things that are like I often feel stupid and inadequate. I exude this impression of competence and confidence in my work, and often I don't feel as confident as I am pretending, I guess, to be. I often feel inadequate, and like any day now, they're going to kind of look at me closer and find out that I'm not good at my job, actually, and that I've made all these mistakes that they just now are realizing, and they're going to put them all together, and they're going to sit me down, and they're going to be like, "You're fired." And it just, that's always in the back of my mind, actually. I worry about what other people think about me. I worry about that a lot, actually. Even though in a way, I don't care. I don't fucking care what people think of me, as evidenced by my opinionated manner and how quickly I will respond to something. But at the same time, I will replay that in my head over and over again afterwards. And it kind of, I don't know, it plagues me a little bit, worrying about what people thought of that exchange, what that person thinks of me now. What are they saying about me? Because of that one interaction we had, they don't really understand me. They don't really know me. They just have that one interaction. It like kind of gets in my head. I'm vain and I'm selfish. I do try to hide those things. They're not very complimentary things. But the vanity, I think, goes along with caring what people think of me and wanting to be perceived a certain way. And I'm selfish. I think about myself a lot. Look, this is the 48th episode of a podcast about me, okay? You can't really, I mean, the proof is in the podcast pudding. The unknown area, this is the area that I don't know shit about this area. And neither do other people. It's completely hidden. This is scary to me. This is scary to me because the part that's scariest to me, I guess, is the thing about like untapped potential. Because when I hear the words potential, when I hear potential, when I think about the concept, I think most people think of it as a good thing. But also, potential can mean bad things. When I think about potential, I think about good potential for good, and potential for evil. And I feel that we, as individuals, have potential for good or evil. Some of us in equal measure, some of us more one than the other. And I don't know where mine lies. But I know that I have potential for either, both, sometimes at the same time. And that's a little scary because, I don't know. We are who we are in the circumstances that we've experienced thus far in life. And we have no idea of knowing who we will be in circumstances that haven't been presented to us yet. And that is, I go down a bit of a rabbit hole with that. All this to say, being aware that people aren't just what they present to you is important, because people have that part that they will share with you. And then they have that part that you can kind of perceive. But there are these other parts that they don't share and that you don't know about that make a whole person. And just, especially when we're talking about work, especially when we're talking about the hospital environment, the high stress, high anxiety environments, like an emergency department, like critical care, like med-surg, basically anywhere in healthcare. You're only getting one environment in which to view that person. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is show up as your full self. Some people are going to like that and some people aren't. Some people are going to try and take parts of your window out and try and fit it into their own box, their own construct of who you are. And that can kind of mess with your head when people start to talk to you and they're like, well, I thought you were one way and now you're this way. Well, you're not your usual bubbly self. And it's like, no, there is no usual self. There is just the self. And there are some days when I'm engaging more with this part of myself and some days where I'm engaging more with this other part of myself. And the thing is, you don't get the one part without the other. You don't get the person who's direct and can take charge and can lead a trauma bay to successfully taking care of all those patients without getting someone who's a little bit bossy and a little bit opinionated and quite loud. For me, with me, you don't get that in parts. You get that as a whole. And there's really nothing I can fucking do about that. And now it's time for some tips and tricks. Really, what is supposed to be going on here today is a journey to self-awareness, right? That's what the Johari Window is helping us to do. I also like it in that it helps me understand other people. So, in that messy, messy journey, here are some tips that I can give you. Tip number 1. Put it in writing. Keeping a journal is highly underrated. And I can say that when you write things down and seeing them written, it's just a different way to express those thoughts and to get things out. And there's no real substitute for that specific kind of expression. You don't have to be good at this. No one's going to be reading this but you. So be kind to yourself in this practice. Not only can journaling help you process your feelings and gain a better understanding of your motivations and triggers, but it actually can help you physically feel better. There was a 2008 study that showed a decrease in cortisol levels among college students who journaled daily for 12 weeks versus those who did not. So there's studies out there to show this will lower your stress level hormones. It's worth a try. Tip number 2. Ask trusted friends for help. So the problem with friends is that they love you and they want you to be happy, which means they're probably not going to bring up things about you that are difficult to hear all the time, right? But you can create an understanding that you want to hear those things, and they're more likely to actually tell you the truth. So sitting people who you trust down and saying, give it to me straight, that can really, really help in developing a strong sense of who you are. Tip number 3. Focus your efforts. Maybe don't try to gain insight about every aspect of your life at once. Maybe start with your work Johari window, then progress to your close friendships, and then go big and talk to your romantic partner. This will be very, very revealing and difficult and hopefully rewarding. And finally, I have one trick. Create space. Like literally and metaphorically create space for this. Set up a time with this trusted coworker, friend, lover. Choose a place where you're both at ease and comfortable and can speak freely without being overheard. And then make sure that they know that this time and this place is for the express purpose of gaining insight into how they see you and maybe what they know of others and how they see you as well. And then be willing to do the same for them, but only if they ask. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If so, please subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends to listen. Gaining self-awareness sucks ass. I will not lie to you, but having it is one of the best things in life, truly. And I don't remember who said this, but essentially, if you know fully who you are, no one can come for you. Thank you for listening, and have a safe shift.
It's an EDRN is written and produced by me. Our senior editor is me. The theme song is written and performed by, tragically, also me. All views and opinions expressed in this podcast are my own and do not reflect the standards and positions of any healthcare entity that I may or may not be working for. Although I am a nurse, things I say in this podcast are not a stand-in for professional medical advice, and everything you hear from randos on the internet should absolutely be validated across multiple other reliable sources.